Hello, Brittany. Thank you so much for joining us today. Brittany Pierce is the nutritionist at Clasado, and she's going to be here today to tell us a little bit about the Bimuno product, which is the product that they'll be promoting on their stand at the ECIM Congress in November next year. So, shall we just start straight away, Brittany, with a question to say, what is the difference between, I've been looking on your website and I understand that Bimuno is a prebiotic, and I thought it might just be useful to start with explaining what is the difference between a prebiotic and a probiotic. We've got a lot of practitioners that are going to be joining us at ECIM next year, and I'm not sure all of them will be completely familiar with the difference between those two. So maybe if we start there, that might be a good opener.
Yes, of course. Thank you for having me today. And I'll just start with explaining probiotics first, because probiotics are more well known as research around them has been around for longer. And they are the live, active, beneficial microorganisms that can be consumed in either fermented foods or supplements. And they have a beneficial effect on the host, so being the human who consumes them. In contrast, prebiotics are the food, and they're the food for probiotic bacteria, and they are consumed in the diet in high fiber foods, but also they can be consumed in supplements. So where some people may not get enough prebiotics or high fiber foods in their diet, that might be where they need a supplement so that they can get this food to feed to their probiotics in their gut microbiome.
Okay, great. So that's a good understanding. Thank you for that. So I've seen that I've looked at your website again, and I can see that you've got a few different products. And I was just wondering if you could tell us a little bit about the products that you offer, but also just try and help explain what is the difference between your product, your prebiotic, compared with some others that might be on the market.
Yeah, so Bimuno is a digestive supplement, also known as a prebiotic, and it contains galacto-oligosaccharides, and these are a type of complex carbohydrate, and that's how they work as prebiotics, because they're non-digestible, and they reach the large intestine intact. And we have 3 SKUs of this. So we have Daily, which was the original Bimuno Daily powder, and that's a tasteless powder supplement that can be added to hot or cold drinks. And later on, we've also developed the pastils, which come in the product's Travel Aid, and that was originally designed because of its ease to use, chewy pastils, and take them away with you. And then we also have the iBaid pastils, which are essentially the same thing. They're chewy pastils, but they have a half dose of the galacto-oligosaccharides. So they're designed for people with more sensitive stomachs. And we recommend that people with sensitive stomachs start with the half dose and go from there. But the 3 SKUs all essentially have the same active ingredient, which is the galacto-oligosaccharides. And what's different about Bimuno is the specificity of the galacto-oligosaccharides. So the structure of these galacto-oligosaccharides that come from lactose originally, and then are built back up into these chains, they feed bifidobacteria in particular. And bifidobacteria is seen as a probiotic bacteria, a beneficial group of bacteria. There's 48 known species, and the Bimuno specifically will feed this, whereas some prebiotics are less specific, so they may feed some less favorable bacteria as well, that are also present in the gut.
Okay, that's useful to understand. Okay, great. So I've actually used your product, Bimuno, the Travel Aid one, because it's readily available at the pharmacy, isn't it? And I think I just was able to pick it up. But I was just noticing on your website that you've got a whole section for healthcare professionals. And I was just wondering if you can tell us a little bit about the information that you've got on there that's useful for healthcare professionals, and some of the research that's behind this product.
It's great to hear you've used Bimuno, and yes, there's a lot of research out there. So our healthcare professional section on our website is to communicate not only the research we have behind Bimuno, but also the wider evidence on the gut microbiome. So we have over 90 pieces of scientific evidence on Bimuno, as well as over 20 clinical trials on Bimuno, and that means that it's one of the most researched prebiotics of its kind. And we have research in various areas from digestive health, also prebiotic effect, as well as immune function and some cognitive health research too. But out there is so much emerging evidence on the gut microbiome, and there's more and more each day on how the gut microbiome is associated with health. And this goes right from digestive health, and we see research on IBS and IBD as well as other conditions. But there's research on the gut microbiome and immune, cognitive, cardiovascular health as well. So there's a lot out there for healthcare professionals to read about, and there's so much. So that's why we try to provide regular updates, as well as the key areas of research on the gut microbiome.
That's great. It's a really, there's a lot of good information there. So I just looked briefly at it, but one of the areas I was just wondering if you wouldn't mind talking about is, I know that we're hearing more and more that when a doctor prescribes a course of antibiotics, it's really useful to take probiotics. And I know in France that seems to be a matter of course, that you get prescribed both at the same time. So on that basis, as the prebiotics are working with the probiotics, do you recommend that somebody should take a prebiotic at the same time as taking probiotics? Is that okay, and is that beneficial?
Yeah, it can be beneficial, and there is more and more research now about the symbiotic effect, and how people can use a probiotic and a prebiotic at the same time to get the benefit of feeding that probiotic that they're taking with the prebiotic. But there's also research in this area on the complementary effect. So you could use a probiotic with a certain type of bacteria, but then you could use a prebiotic that's actually going to feed a different bacteria, and they can both thrive, both types of bacteria, and get a complementary effect on health. So there's more research on that, and we're actually hoping to write a piece on that next year, just an update in the area. But yes, while taking antibiotics, and also after a course of antibiotics, it can be really beneficial to use probiotics, prebiotics, or both together, just to replenish those good gut bacteria. And some people will take that just after a course, but some people will take probiotics or prebiotics more long term as well to see that effect.
Yeah, and actually that's maybe a good time to talk about. So how do you take Bimuno? Is it a product that you would take for a short period of time or a long time? And I noticed on your website that there is an option to have a subscription, which implies that it's something that you renew and take regularly. So
We do have a lot of people who take Bimuno regularly, and we see this through regular customers that we meet, as well as healthcare professionals that use it regularly. But it can be something that people just use after a course of antibiotics, because we know that bifidobacteria does decline, and it doesn't recover as well as other kinds of good gut bacteria. So it might be that you use Bimuno for a short time after antibiotics, or for a trip away, for example. Some people will take a prebiotic supplement while they're going away and traveling abroad. And that's where Travel Aid came in originally. But that's where there's two examples of where people might use prebiotics short term, but other people like to use it all the time, just to have that balance in their gut bacteria.
that's great. It's interesting that you're doing so much research, and particularly the symbiotic research that you're working on now. I was thinking that obviously the ECIM is not going to be taking place for another year, unfortunately, as we've obviously had to delay. But if in between that time some of that research is available, then maybe we could have another interview, and we could put that people that are interested will be able to access that via the videos on your page on the ECIM website. But of course, also more importantly, Brittany and her colleagues will be there in person at the ECIM in November next year from the 5th to the 7th. And you'll be able to find out lots more information by speaking to them directly then. And again, their research is probably, they're constantly doing research, so they'll probably have more information to share with you. So that's
Yeah,
wonderful, Brittany.
yeah, thank you very much. And I'm really looking forward to meeting people at the conference.
Yeah, no, we are too. So, well, that's great. And thanks for your time today. Look
No
forward
problem.
to chatting again. Thank you. Bye bye, Brittany.
Bye, thank you.